Hi, everybody. We're down in the podcast studio in Helix. We just thought it'd be a good opportunity for you to have Helix introduced to yourself. So, as myself and my colleague Kerr, we're just going to give you an introduction and tell you about how the space sort of helps people sort of feel a belonging on campus. So, I'm Peter North. I'm the space manager for Helix. I've been working in the position for just over about 18 months. Loving the job. I think it's a very varied role, even though it is kind of focused more towards facilitating and helping people use and get in the space. But having worked at the university for many years, I think bringing a lot of that sort of knowledge into the space and how the space can be used and sort of get out there to the wider community sort of definitely helps myself. What do you think?
Yeah, this is actually my first time ever sitting in the hot seat, as it were. I think, at least. I might have done it once, but anyway. It's very rare that we get time to come down here ourselves, actually, and just
Yeah,
experience it from the other side of things. I've been in the role, just a bit longer than you. I think it's a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, something like that.
Time flies when you're having fun, as they say. My role is slightly different to Peter's. It's more focused on the community, so it's about actually trying to raise awareness of Helix. So this kind of podcast is actually useful for us because we want to make sure people know we exist, and also know how to access everything we can do. So that comes to spaces and equipment, but also think about how Helix can shape new students. So obviously we have just finished doing open days. We've had new potential students come on campus and not know anything about Helix. So it's really interesting having them come down here and actually experience, before they're even students, that this is the kind of facility that's available to them if they were to become a student. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind
Yeah,
year and a half.
I think we've quite quickly become sort of the random question place because I think from my perspective, I think there's never a silly question or a daft question. I think a lot of the people that use Helix use it for hopefully the main reason why the place was designed. So we're getting a lot of repeat custom, but also a big wide diversity of users in Helix. Ranging from like School of Dentistry all the way up to sort of arts, cultures, social sciences. We've currently got lots of social science students producing presentations and podcasts. Literally this afternoon, we've had business students doing ethics role plays, sort of using their phones to film things. So there's such a wide diversity of users in the space, and I think that's what sort of planting that seed of creativity amongst sort of students that didn't really have a space to sort of be creative.
And we've seen all sorts, haven't we?
Yeah.
The variety of different projects and different people that come into the space has been great. We've had people doing eyeballs, 3D printed eyeballs, that is, not genetically modifying anything biological. But we've had 3D printed eyeballs, which are connected via strings, so it shows the movement of the muscles behind the eye. We've had people doing, or dentistry were in, weren't they, doing 3D printing as well? They were looking to do, was it dentures or was it just moulds of teeth?
A bit of both. I think they're wanting to sort of create a model that they could actually take teeth out of. So that was.
And then we had the coin person.
So we had a 300 BC Alexander the Great coin, wanted 3D scanning, and then off the back of that, through sort of learning some of the tech and the stuff that we've got in the space, I think we've developed quite close connections with a lot of departments at the university. So we've got that repeat custom from School of Architecture there and their civil engineering departments. They're using Helix a lot for 3D printing models, but then sort of diversifying outside of Helix to sort of the wider, more local community. We've linked up with Leeds City Museum, where we've done a lot of 3D scanning and 3D printing of sort of objects for, I think it was an exhibition for partially sighted and blind people.
So it was just accessibility for visually impaired people. So it was a current exhibition which is happening. And obviously when you visit a museum, a lot of the artifacts are kept behind glass cases, for example, so you can't actually touch them. You're relying on being able to see them. So if you imagine someone's visually impaired, their actual user experience and their time in the museum is much, it's not as good as someone who can see things properly because you can't engage that way. So what we did was 3D print the artifacts so that people can actually pick them up. And that means that someone is visually impaired. At least if they can't see something properly, at least they can feel it and touch it and experience it through their hands. So it gives them that interaction that other people get that they wouldn't have had otherwise.
I think sort of with how Helix has positioned itself as well, with it being a central space for everybody, I think that's helped students take a bit of ownership. And one thing that I think we've sort of taken inspiration from other places around the world that have a similar type of facilities is having a deliberate sort of student sort of face to Helix as well. So through employing our crop of innovation partners, which are current students and recent graduates, as well as our first full-time intern this year, has allowed us to sort of just expand that capacity. The people in these positions get a mutual beneficial. They actually get to work in a space that is very new, but also the people using the space get to identify with people in their peer group as opposed to just coming and knocking on our door and speaking to me and Kerr.
Yeah, and in terms of belonging, I think hopefully what we've just described shows the variety of different people that when someone comes into Helix, you do get the chance to meet these people. It's obviously a space where people you can work independently, but you can work in groups, you can work in big spaces, small spaces. I think it's the opportunity to meet people and to speak to people that is there if you want it. I think that's one of the key things. And also it's non-hierarchical. I mean, when you come in here, you could be talking to anyone and you wouldn't really know.
Yeah.
Unless you know them beforehand, you don't know who that person is until you get talking to them. I think that's a really nice, and sometimes I think it's not that common at universities to have spaces like that. So I think it's a nice place to be for that reason.
Yeah, I think it's sort of inverted what I'd see as sort of silos that exist at the university where we're kind of not against that, but sort of like open that space up for people to use the space in lots of different ways. I think as we've developed in the space and how we're sort of looking to the future, I think we've expanded the amount of inductions that we offer to staff and students, and this year by increasing the number of staff we've also been able to offer longer workshops. So being able to specialise in things like board game design and content creation and VR activities, all these types of things have quite organically sort of developed, and we've got a good mixture of staff and students on these courses, which I think witnessing it from the outside, seeing staff and students working on something that you would normally sort of expect just to be students, I think has been kind of unique and quite interesting from a spectator looking in, and how that's worked. And hopefully we'll be able to expand on that and offer even more.
Yeah. Do you think you belong to Helix? Not belong to Helix, but do you feel belonging in Helix?
I do, yeah. I think it's like I identify as a Helix person, I suppose, if there is such a thing. Yes, we don't have a uniform, but I think I've kind of dispensed of the baggage of what I had from working at the university for 20 plus years. I think it's been useful, but I think I'm Helixified, if that's the thing.
I like that Freudian slip of now you belong to Helix. But no, I think it does encourage a feeling of belonging because, as you said before, it is a lot of ownership comes just from being here. When we have a lot of students who I genuinely feel they belonging in the space. They feel like they have a role to play, and not every one of these students are interns or innovation partners. These are people who are just doing projects, but because they hear so much, I suppose it's a hard thing to describe. I'm not a anthropologist. I don't understand the psychology of it all. But I guess when you are somewhere enough and familiar enough with a space, you want to help, and through helping, it creates an ownership. So everyone's like a shared ownership. So we're like Waitrose. Everyone's got their
yeah. We need loyalty cards, but
yeah.
But I think even strange things like some of the groups of students who are regularly on our computers. I remember speaking to them before the summer, and they'd actually chosen their accommodation based on the proximity to Helix. So that kind of sort of backs up what you're saying. It's that feeling of belonging in the space, taking ownership, and we know that we can go up to them people and actually even say to them, "Oh, you've got a bit of an interest in that. Can you sort of help out with somebody?"
Yeah.
And they'll just happily do it. And I think there's it's a two-way thing where they also get a benefit from being able to use the space, but also the connections that we have with other departments and things, which has been beneficial to them.
And if anyone hasn't been to Helix before, please do come down. But we're obviously, well, you may not say obviously, it's not obvious, but we're part of an existing 1970s build. So EC Stoner, level 7, it's been refurbed. Obviously, there's limitations to what we can do because it's a listed building. So it's nice and shiny inside, but outside you probably wouldn't even know. I mean, you wouldn't really know Helix was there apart from some signage we've got on the door. But because of that, we are able to, well, what we're trying to do is to invest in the space. And one of the things we're trying to do to make sure belonging applies to everyone is that we're updating what we're doing inside in terms of accessibility. So we have electrified doors, we've changed doors, we're as we're going, we're trying to do as much as we can to make sure that everyone does feel that they belong here. So there shouldn't be any barriers to any group of people. So that's what we're hoping to do as we travel forward. And we have just sort of signed off some more changes,
Yeah.
haven't we?
I think even sort of just practical things like opening on an evening, we've expanded the number of evenings we're open. We're trialing sort of the odd Saturday in the month. And I think as we get more retention, I think maybe my dream is hopefully that with the places 24/7, we can provide students and staff sort of access sort of whenever, even when, there's no Helix staff on site, but to provide that sort of feeling of that it is your space, you come and use it. And then, it's something that myself and Kerr have sort of said on many, many tours that we do of the space is that Helix is kind of a prototype of itself. And I think over time we've kind of felt sort of a bit cringeful when we sort of say these words, but it is sort of going that way. And I think we've sort of developed and sort of changed space. And I know with how universities work that it's difficult to make these changes quickly. And I think we're quite lucky to be able to sort of develop and change things.
And we're already talking about Helix 2 as a badge. It's not an official title or anything like that, but we're looking at how we can expand what we have in Helix. How that looks, we don't really know yet. But I guess in terms of extending our belonging, if we could be in more places, if Helix could be bigger, if Helix could pop up in another building, however that looks, the chance of people having that belonging outside EC Stoner would be great, because it means there's pockets of people, staff and students, and external communities who can benefit from Helix and feel like they belong here without actually having to set a foot in EC Stoner, which, we're relatively central, but, for someone who's at the far end of campus, it's not ideal. But if you've got helixes, satellite helixes in other places, then that feeling of belonging can extend that way.
Yeah, I mean, we've always encouraged this sort of frictionless approach to people using Helix. I mean, even little things like free tea and coffee, that sort of created that little hub, almost like organically inside of Helix. And I know a lot of students often comment that they feel well caffeinated, and it's one of them things that you get them sort of water cooler moments where people have good conversations around things. They pass our office door because they've got to get back to their spaces, and them sort of opportunities to sort of, tell us what they're doing and even showcase some of the work that they're doing. I think that's one thing where instead of it just being a space for open days, we've encouraged people who've used the space to show off what they're doing, even when they're graduating, and encouraging them to come back and as alumni and participants in space. And I think that's just going to be one thing that keeps growing and growing and growing.
Yeah. And we love doing a showcase. We love having people show what they do, what they've done, and people to come and see. And I mean, by the time you listen to this, I'm sure there will have been there has been at least one. There might have even been the second one, which depending when you listen to this. So that's coming up. Another thing we haven't done is got beds yet. I keep encouraging everyone to get a bed so we can all
sleep
not be
pods or
24/7, but
something,
have naps when needed.
Yeah.
But we haven't got those yet.
No. Might go lo-fi and do futons, but
yeah. What would be your last leaving statement if you could say anything about Helix in relation to belonging?
I think speak to people if you hear conversation of what Helix is through your peers, your peer group, if tutors or sort of colleagues have sort of mentioned Helix to you, first stage might be look on the website, get a bit of background into what the space is, but there's no harm in just literally just doorstepping us, coming down to Helix, seeing what the space is. Even if it's nothing related to your module, it might be just a completely selfish interest that you have in 3D printing, or you've never used a sewing machine, or there's something like that. You want to get creative, and we're always open to suggestions. If there's something that we're not doing that you would like us to do, where we can always sort of have that conversation.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
Similar, I think. I think don't be shy to come down. We are literally open for everyone. You'll never be turned away. Obviously, we have opening hours, which we stick to, but as you've mentioned, we're trying to extend those and change them. But every single person who is a University of Leeds student, staff member, part of the wider community that we work with, and beyond, I mean, we are trying to work with as many people across the city as we can, within reason, because we understand that education and university experiences are open to everyone, and we need people to feel like they're welcome to try. The only limitations we have, obviously, is the fact that we're not massive, and we do have a booking system. So you'll never be thrown out, but people have made bookings that sometimes dictates who can sit and be where. But yeah, we do want everyone to come and experience Helix.